O God, as we come to worship. It's good to see all of you this morning, and on behalf of the congregation, I'd like to extend a special greeting to our visitors. We're certainly happy you're here. Hope you enjoyed the service and that you will come and worship with us again. The announcements, for the most part, are printed in your bulletins. I do want to thank all of you on behalf of Bryn Muller and Liz Adikes for your generosity last week. As you see in the bulletin, for their Silver Award Project and Girl Scouts, you contributed over $800, and they are absolutely thrilled. Next week, Jeff Muller and I are going to make an announcement and see if we can do as well as the girls did. So we're already thinking of maybe doing that weekly, and we're going to share what comes in. So we appreciate that. A little note that I was just given this morning, I did not know about it. It's going to be an enhanced orange juice fellowship in Chapel Hall. In addition to the orange juice, we're going to have coffee and some pastries, so you're all invited to come back there after the worship service. If you're visiting, you simply go out here, come all the way down, go as far as you can past the restrooms, and you're going to be in Chapel Hall. If there are any visiting children this morning who did not realize it at the proper time, Joe will still be taking whatever kids are here to their classes, so please join him. He'll be over here, and they'll be going out through the door to my left. The rest of the announcements are there. I'll let you read them yourselves. Let's now begin our service of worship.
Good morning, and again I extend a very warm welcome to all of our extended family that has joined us today on this very special occasion as we celebrate the ministry of Herb. Let us now read together responsively the invitation to celebration. We have begun another new day with all it offers for our use and entertainment. It is also a day in which we can work for the betterment of our world. What do you think you will do to contribute to that improvement? We will attempt to imitate the Christ who we claim to follow. Let us commit ourselves to remembering the past so we can work in the present for a better future. And we promise that when we leave this place, we will continue our worship by the way we live. call upon God as we read the invocation in unison. This is a time of transition, and we are looking ahead to what is yet to come. On Memorial Day, we remember the contributions of those in the past who labored to bring us to this point, and pledge ourselves to continue the struggle to make this a better world for all its inhabitants. Throughout the week, we have worked, and now we come seeking rest and renewal in worship. We need to restore our strength, reaffirm our faith, expand our vision, increase our courage, so we can truly serve you. Help us find you, especially in one another. Point us at these goals you would have us to reach, and enable us to live our faith, not just speak it. Make us bigger and better than we ever thought possible. And now listen to our hearts as we pray the prayer of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
When engulfed by the terror of tempestuous sea, unknown waves before you roar. At the end of doubt and peril is eternity, though fear and conflict seize your soul.
But just think of stepping on shore and finding it heaven, of touching a hand and finding it God's, of breathing new air and finding it celestial, of waking up in glory and finding it home.
When surrounded by the blackness of the darkness night, oh, how lonely death can be. At the end of this long journey is the shining light, for death is swallowed up in victory.
But just think of stepping on shore and finding it heaven, of touching a hand and finding it God's, of breathing new air and finding it celestial,
Thank you, Marilyn. I have to say you do a wonderful job leading our very talented choir. Thank you for your music. And just as God has blessed us in so many ways, a beautiful world, a land of freedom for us, so many things that we have been able to do, let us say thank you to God as we give our tithes and offerings.
Good and gracious, compassionate and caring God, we come to you week after week to express our hopes, our desires, our complaints, our demands, and so seldom with expressions of our gratitude for the blessings we have been given and which we usually don't deserve. Yet you continue to love us, warts and all, and you continue to show that love by bestowing upon us more and more blessings, so that even when our lives are turned upside down, we find the strength to continue on, traveling from those dark valleys of desperation and loss to finally rest beside still waters where our souls can be restored and we can find peace. Open our eyes to the beauty which is all around us, and thus enable us to live our lives to the fullest, so that we can become as complete in our humanity as possible. Show us what it means to be Jesus-like, to the extent that joy is a constant emotion, even when the night is dark, because with such a positive and optimistic attitude, we will always find the dawning of a new day as we move into the future. Teach us that change is inevitable, and that we have the power to determine whether that change will be good or bad. Now, through us, bring relief to those with needs of any kind, the sick, the sorrowing, the homeless, the helpless, the oppressed, the victimized, the hungry, the hated, the ignored, the rejected, the lost, the vulnerable. There is so much we can and should do in and for our world. Give us the strength to get started. This morning on this Memorial Day weekend, O God, we pray particularly for those who have lost loved ones. May their memories be good, and may those memories sustain them in the time ahead. And now continue to hear us as we continue our prayer in quiet personal meditation. Amen. you this morning from the Hebrew Scriptures. I'm reading first from the book of Genesis, the first book in the Bible, and then from Ecclesiastes. In Genesis, I'm reading from chapter 1, verse 24 through 2, verse 3. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. And they're reading from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. And these are very familiar words. Ecclesiastes supposedly was written by the teacher. Perhaps Solomon had a hand in it. In any case, it is part of the wisdom literature of the Bible, and gives us advice. "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace." Let us think about these words as we continue together in our worship this morning. It was early in the season, and the man, an avid and ardent golfer, decided he would get a start and go out even though it was a little bit cold. So he got out on the course, and when he was about halfway through, he came to a short 3-par hole and decided, looking behind him, there was nobody there, looking around him, nobody was around any place. He decided that he'd try a few balls just to kind of gauge the distance. So he took out 3 balls and he put them down on tees. He put out a red ball and a white ball and a blue ball, and he got out a 7-iron. And he took a swing at that red ball and he sent it up in the air, and it landed well short of the green. Well, that wasn't that great, so instead he got out a 6-iron, and he hit the ball. He hit the white ball, and it went up too, and it landed just a little bit further than the red ball, but not too much further, and that still wasn't satisfactory. So he finally pulled out a 5-iron, and he decided he was really going to let this one sail. So he took a ferocious swing, and he hit that blue ball, and it sailed over the green and kept going over the trees and kept going and going and going. I've forgotten the punchline. That's embarrassing. Well, we'll see what happens later. You'd think I wouldn't screw up on the last Sunday, wouldn't you? Well. Tomorrow is Memorial Day, a holiday made for memories. Officially and traditionally, we remember on Memorial Day those military men and women who have given their lives in service to their country. That's the purpose for which the holiday was created, and the main reason for which it has been celebrated. But we have expanded its emphasis to include a celebration of the lives of loved ones who are no longer with us, loved ones who have had a positive impact on our lives and helped to make us who and what we are. I must admit that on this, my last Sunday in this pulpit as your pastor, I am engulfed by memories. Usually when a pastor leaves a congregation, he or she is also leaving the community. Lorraine and I are fortunate that we are not doing that. We will be staying here and remaining part of the chapel family, but in parishioner roles rather than in ministerial ones. After all, this community and this church have been our homes for 36 years. So many of our friends are here, so many of our associations are here, so many of our involvements are here, and our hearts are certainly here. So we'll stay away for a while as Rhonda gets her feet on the ground, and then we'll be back, sitting there with you, and together. Now that should be a real novelty and a treat for both of us. That's when new memories will begin developing as we look to the future, a different future. Memories. I had been at Scottwood Community Church in Columbus, Ohio for 11 years when I heard that the chapel was looking for a new pastor. At the time, I was the editor of the newspaper of the International Council of Community Churches, the ICCC, and received your ad for publication. Well, it looked interesting. Now, I knew very little about Florida. Mine was not a family that vacationed here as I was growing up, and I had only been here a few times attending ICCC meetings, always on the East Coast. So it's not like, despite my love of water, I was desperate to get to a place that had so much of it, or because I was familiar with what this area had to offer. Actually, I was testing my marketability. I had reached a point in my professional career where the potential for new opportunities was attractive, and the little I knew about the chapel looked interesting to me. So I sent in my resume. And I was excited when I got a call from the search committee suggesting that we together look further at the possibilities. That's what we did. And everything got more and more positive as the communication continued. The list of candidates was whittling down, and finally Lorraine and I came down for a weekend to meet with the committee and for me to preach a trial sermon. I was interviewed, and then we spent time with several families to get a picture of Clearwater, of the Clearwater area, from residents of different ages. Obviously all went well because we got a call when we were in Hawaii on vacation after an ICCC conference in California indicating that the vote had gone favorably and I was being called to this position. We arrived on Halloween, and I officially began on November 1st, 1981. I was 39 years old, and Lorraine was a lot younger. If that doesn't win me brownie points, I don't know what will. Kirsten and Eric were respectively entering middle school and high school. It is kind of strange to consider that our kids are now older than we were when we arrived here. Indeed, our children have children who are older than they were when we arrived here. And what a time we have had. It didn't take long to realize just how special the Chapel by the Sea is and was. One thing that has always been so impressive has been the quality of the music. When we arrived, we were walking across the parking lot out here, and the side door to the sanctuary was open a bit. The summer choir, then as now a handful of people, was practicing before the service. It sounded like there were 30 voices producing incredible harmony. It turned out to be 6 or 7. And again, then as now, the congregation was warm and welcoming, not just to us, but to everyone who came through our doors. In addition, the members and friends of this church were involved in the entire community. Their discipleship extended well beyond the confines of this facility and its programs. The chapel has always been the beach church, not just because it is the only church on the beach, but because it chooses to be there for all the people of the beach. If anyone has needs, we are always there to meet them, whether or not those individuals have an ongoing connection with the life of this parish. When my discussions first began with the chapel through its search committee, one of the things I most admired and appreciated was the honesty. Every organization, even one like this, has weaknesses, and the committee did not sugarcoat the difficulties. The ages of the members of the congregation were a major concern. At my age of 39, it was assumed that I was old enough to have had some kind of experience which would be helpful to the church, and young enough that I might just attract some younger folks. As one of the younger and active members of the congregation, then in his 20s, later told me, before you came, most of the heads in the congregation were bald or blue. Well, I didn't do too much for the bald demographics, although I was less bald and more wrinkle-free at that time. And at this juncture, I am certain that Rhonda will, like I did, attract younger families with new ideas and new vision and new energy. I'm not sure we always realize or appreciate how fortunate we are. This church is very unique. We have a fabulous facility in a fabulous location. We have members and friends who are generous and active, not just in the life of the church, but in the life of the community. We have no outstanding debts and some money in the bank, as well as those who are always there with open hands and pocketbooks when the need arises. We have those who have generously remembered the chapel with financial gifts after they are gone. We have marvelous music and offer an encouraging and positive and loving worship experience. We have an impact on and involvement in the secular community, which for churches is extremely rare. We have the best parishioners and volunteers and staff that can be found anywhere. Does that mean we are perfect? Of course not. But we keep trying to get better. And when I am with colleagues at meetings and conferences and they begin to speak about their difficulties, believe it or not, I keep quiet. I don't have enough material with which to get involved in their complaining. I have so thoroughly enjoyed the time I have spent here as your pastor. Indeed, I cannot imagine where the time has gone. My moments of frustration have been few, and my times of happiness have been countless. And that is beyond the fact that I have been doing what I love to do because of the people I have met, the people who I have loved and who have loved me. I once heard an accomplished and experienced clergyman say at an ICCC conference that he had been the minister of his church for 5 years and its pastor for 2. What he meant was that he could be the professional minister who led the church right from the beginning of his employment, but to really be its pastor, he had to get to know its people as people, to be involved in their lives, to be there in their joy and in their sorrow, in their gains and in their losses, in their ups and in their downs, in their triumphs and in their tragedies, to be there with them and for them, no matter what the reason. You have honored me by allowing me to do that with and be that for you, and I am grateful. If over the course of time you have learned anything from me, I have learned far more from you. And I have realized over and over just how tough and faithful you are, because I have found out, as you have shared with me, just what you have endured and overcome in lives that have not always been easy. You know, the kind of long pastorate I have had, and 36 years is a very long pastorate, can be wonderful and difficult from a personal perspective. Because you see, I have made a lot of friends, but I have also lost a lot of friends. And every one of those who has impacted my life and is now gone holds a permanent place in my heart and in my memory. Memories. This morning they flood my mind. I think about some of the chapel's giants, no longer with us, who did so much and gave so much so that this congregation could become stronger and stay that way. I think about some of the programs we have initiated and or joined over the years and which have contributed to the betterment of our community. Programs like religious community services, yes, we helped start it, like Beach Walk, like Non-Trivial Pursuits, like Stop Hunger Now, like Tampa Bay Harvest, like the Orange Suitcase Project for the Haven, like Habitat for Humanity, for which we supplied all the labor and funding to build a house, like the purchase of a refrigerated truck for the food bank, and a living unit at Grace House. I think about those, again, so many of them now gone, who have pushed us to do more and to do better. I think about the babies I have baptized, who were the children of babies that I had baptized. I think about how many children and adults have learned about their faith through the educational programs that we have provided and the dedicated teachers who have given them those educations. I think about the enjoyment we have brought to the community through such programs as our concert series some years ago, and the skits and plays presented by the chapel players, and the dinners which offered fun and sustenance to so many happy diners. I think about, well, the list goes on and on. Now the chapel has reached a kind of crossroads. After almost 36 years, I will be leaving my current leadership role, and someone new will assume it. This is as it should be. As the teacher of Ecclesiastes so insightfully put it, for everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Well, this is a good time for Chapel by the Sea, and the future looks bright as it stretches forth from here and now. Your new pastor is most talented, and she will be doing great things to her new charge. She has the gifts and she has the experience to hit the ground running, and I don't think that she is going to stop anytime soon. So hang on to your hats, because Rhonda will work with you to keep and improve what is great about this church and lead you in new directions as new opportunities and needs develop. And Lorraine and I are so eager to be part of it all. So this is a time which is filled with potential, with excitement, and perhaps most of all with surprises. A woman was riding on a train, and in her compartment with her was her pet parrot, a rather nasty and noisy bird. And they were just chattering away when a man came in. And that parrot, who didn't like strangers, started to verbally and in a very loud, squawking voice attack the man. Well, the woman joined the parrot, and they just went at each other left and right, and it really got pretty nasty. Finally, the man got fed up with the whole thing, so he whipped out a cigar and started smoking it, blowing that smoke right in the face of the parrot. Well, you can imagine what happened. The parrot just got nastier and nastier. The woman got nastier and nastier. They started yelling. She complained. He said, "Why don't you get rid of the parrot?" She says, "I paid for the parrot. It can stay here." She said, "Why don't you get rid of the cigar?" He said, "This is a smoking compartment. I can smoke if I want to." Finally, she got so furious, she grabbed that cigar, whipped it right out of his mouth, and threw it out the window. Well, you can see how he responded. He grabbed the parrot by the neck and threw it out the window. And they continued yelling at each other and yelling at each other. And finally, they just looked out that window, was a little tap on the window, and there was the parrot flying along next to the train. And you know what it had in its beak? The blue golf ball. I told that joke at my trial sermon 36 years ago, and it still works. It is so easy to get discouraged with the world as it is now. But I talked about potential, excitement, and surprises. It seems like everywhere we look, there is hatred, there is violence, there is war, there is ignorance and intolerance, there is greed, there is dishonesty, there is brutality, there is selfishness. So many of those human qualities and characteristics which our faith advocates and in which we believe seem to be lost or diminished as the world apparently goes to hell in a handbasket. But is that really true? Hasn't it always, to at least some extent, been this way, with just about every generation thinking that it is experiencing what nobody else has experienced before? Perhaps we are not strong enough in our belief in a God who, working through the countless people who strive to live their faith, really is in charge, despite the evidence so often to the contrary. A God who, as the world was created, declared that it was good. That's the kind of God we have found here. The kind of God manifested in the members and friends of this church who, while flawed and imperfect, as are all human beings, don't give up on their hope and their optimism that the world, which is not as bad as it sometimes seems, can always become better. We've just got to work at it. You've all experienced tough times, but would you give up the joy you have felt in exchange for the pain you have felt? I wouldn't. Like you, I have been hurt, but oh, do I ever enjoy life. And why is that? Well, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blue day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also in the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Thank you. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. as we leave this place, as we leave every Sunday. Let it be with the commitment to be all we can be, become all we can be in God's service, and bringing God to others as we meet them, because he is manifested in us. And in our efforts, may the Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift the light of his countenance upon us and give us peace, both now and forevermore. Amen.